Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Friday, the show where we dive into the stories and experiences from people from all walks of life. Today, we have Michael Morgan. He's a stand-up comedian and a singer-songwriter. He's from East Texas, and he's also in the Marine Corps veteran. Whether he's on stage, cracking jokes, making music, Michael knows how to entertain. Let's dive in. Michael, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Glad to be here.
No, for the listeners, for the listeners who may not be familiar with your line of work yet, could you give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm like you said, I'm from a small town in East Texas, grew up there. Went off to the Marines for about 8 years and came back with a pretty dark, twisted sense of humor and decided to pour that into comedy. So
No, can you give me a little bit about your insights into your early days and how you got into comedy and entertainment?
so I've always been around like music, and when I was like 5 years old, my parents are Pentecostal pastors. And so, like, growing up, we would go to church, come home, they would go to bed, and then right as they started to fall asleep, like Saturday Night Live would come on. So I would be listening, I'd be watching it in like the living room with like the volume at like a 3, just loud enough where I could kind of get the jokes and stuff. And then I've always been around music. My dad plays guitar, my mom plays piano, and they both sing and in the Christian music side of things. And so I've just kind of always been around that. And I was always the entertainment. We were pretty broke when I was younger. So pretty much all our entertainment was me doing characters or making jokes or, writing funny songs and different things like that.
No,
So,
those first days are really impactful. You know what I mean?
yeah, like I grew up on, Robin Williams, Richard Pryor, George Carlin. And like I said, I was entirely, I would never let my kids watch any of that at the age that I did. So, it definitely prepared me. And my dad gave me kind of the best advice when I was a kid. My dad was real rough on me, like not abusive, but, he would joke around with me and pick on me. And he would always say, I'm making you stronger. That way, when you get picked on at school, and he knew I was going to get picked on at school just by looking at me. And so he was like, I'm preparing you. That way you'll be quick witted. And because my dad's real funny, like he's pretty much a comedian, just throws God in there every once in a while. And so he kind of prepared me to kind of be quick witted and, quick thinking like that.
No, those are special moments you can share with your father.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how
So,
did your journey into comedy begin? I mean, what was your first stand-up performance like, and when was it?
so the first thing I did was in 2018. And I just walked into a bar in Tyler, Texas that they were doing stand up at. Never tried stand. I've always kind of like had that brain and written, I would think of funny things and write them down and stuff. And I just kind of walked in and they were like, "Are you a comedian?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I am." I wasn't in any way like I wasn't any kind of professional or anything, but they would pay me $75 a weekend to go up and just MC for comedians. So I had like bigger comedians coming in and everything. And I did that for about a month um, until I said the C word on stage, which I got fired for that just because it wasn't a comedy club. It was like a restaurant that they do comedy in. So people are like trying to eat, steak and chicken and all that. And I'm just up there dropping C bombs. They were like, I don't think you're a right fit. And so I kind of stepped away from it for a little bit of time. And, it's just something I've always wanted to do. It's been my passion since I was a kid. And I talked to my wife a couple of years ago and just said, I got to take this serious. It's what I want to do. I'm not getting any younger if I don't really pursue it now. I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. And whether fall on my face or succeed, at least I know I went for it. And so she was okay with it. So I just started hitting every open mic I could. And eventually, people would think I was somewhat funny and let me go and do actual shows. And it just kind of started really snowballing from there. I got Dallas Comedy Club. I'm going to be there on March 9th, which is it's a big North Texas comedy club. A lot of big acts and stuff go there. So that was kind of like a goal that I wanted to reach. And so I'm really excited about that show just because mentally I was like, I'm going to get on that stage as soon as I can. So that was a nice goal to finally reach,
No, you're chasing your dreams because your dreams will not chase you. Now, Michael, who or what was inspired you the most in comedy and music?
Man, music, Goo Goo Dolls. That's like my all-time favorite band. Musically, like I started out on drums and then learned, different instruments. I even learned how to play accordion, and which accordion players don't get laid at all. Like that's a myth. But I picked up guitar real early on in like 6th, 7th grade, and that was the first song I ever learned was Iris by Goo Goo Dolls. And man, that just always I wanted to be John Ruzicki, or I can never pronounce his last name. It's got like 9 Z's in it. And but yeah, they were a big inspiration. But a lot of the early 90s band, Matchbox 20, just a lot of bands like that, Foo Fighters, that kind of soft rock or alternative rock was a big inspiration for me. And as far as comedy, man, like I said, my one of my favorite comedians is Pete Holmes. It's just because our stories align so well. I was very heavy into religion growing up, and like to the point where like I don't know if I can say this, but like I was terrified if I masturbated one time, I was going to go to hell. I remember the first time I ever did it, like I cried after. I was like, well, this is it. I'm done. I'm cooked. And when I kind of got out of that, I really was more and more introduced to different comedians and that I just fell in love with, Martin Norman, Shane Gillis, Joe Rogan, there's a lot, Rory Scoble, there's a lot of good comedians, but Pete Holmes was definitely probably the biggest inspiration to me just because I kind of watched his journey and kind of went through the same thing,
No, it's great. Now, in one of your recent Instagram posts, you shared about the challenges of dating in a small town. Could you dive a little bit more deeper into that? What inspired behind that joke?
Man, so what the inspiration behind that joke was, I grew up in my dad's church in Fruitvale, Texas, and the first girl I ever had a crush on, she went to my dad's church. Like I kissed her and everything, and nobody really, like my family was like, oh, that's cute. That's real cute. You guys belong together. Man, nobody told me, which I kind of knew, but I guess I didn't know just because I was like, well, there's no way, but, her grandmother is my dad's aunt. And I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, this is too close knit. I don't need any like 4 eyeball children and, 9 fingers on one hand. And so that was definitely the inspiration behind there was like really my first kiss was way too close to home, literally, So, that definitely was the inspiration behind that joke. Just being in a small town, you kind of have to, if you really want to get away from, family members, kissing family members, you got to go outside the area code. So, yeah, that's somewhat based on a true story as far as like the joke. So,
Yeah, that's dating in a small town for you. I mean, now, what's your favorite part of being a comedian?
man, so the writing side, I love writing. I try to get into sketch comedy and I'm always writing like sketch ideas but I love the formula of it. I love constructing, a joke and a punchline and kind of adding twists in there. And But I just love to perform, man. I'm honestly, when I'm on stage, if I'm in front of people, I have zero stage fright. But the second I'm not like the center of attention, I just have huge anxiety, like in a room full of people, which that's probably somewhat narcissistic, I imagine. But what are you going to do? You know,
You do
so
bring great energy to your performances.
thank you.
Now, what is the hardest challenge you've ever had to face on your journey being a comedian?
Um, Honestly, man, sometimes you'll go do a show or you'll go to an open mic and, it's people playing pool and they're not really listening, so that has really trained me to kind of be able to read a room and kind of understand the crowd and what they're needing at the time, because you don't ever want to get up and just consistently do the same thing. You want to make it special for them at the moment. So that's definitely a challenge, is kind of reading a room and going, okay, what does this room need from me at the moment? What can I do to make them laugh? Like, I did a show 2 Sundays ago in Fort Worth, Texas, and it was a good crowd for sure, but I kind of got up there, was a little nervous at first because it was kind of packed, and I'd accidentally wore a pair of pants that had a huge hole cut in the crotch. And I never throw them away. I always forget to throw them away. So I put them on and I didn't realize it until like 20 minutes before I went up there. So I just kind of addressed it the second I got up there. I was like, hey, I noticed I wore these pants with a huge hole in it. So if you see a huge dick pop out, I'm holding it for a friend. And that kind of really loosened up the room and kind of opened everybody up, And so, yeah, that's really just the biggest challenge, is kind of taking it step by step and going, okay, what does this audience need at this moment? Because like I said, I'm doing, more or less the same material, but I'm needing to do it in a different way each time, that's going to be relatable to the audience.
That's really cool how you can just go in there. I mean, how do you read a room when you walk into something like that? And I mean, do you have like a go-to joke to warm up the crowd?
Yeah. So as far as like a go-to joke, I don't really have like I have the start of my set, which is usually, just kind of telling people where I'm from. Like, most of the time I'll kind of talk to people and, be like, anybody know where Fruitvale is? Most of them don't. And I'll just kind of tell them my opening joke is, the thing about being from a small town is half the people are named Bubba. And, I've never really heard anything. I've never been told anything worth knowing by Bubba. They've never been like, hey, here's what you want to know about a Roth IRA. But I've had somebody named Bubba send me a picture of a shit they took. So just kind of trying to relate to them, let them know where I'm coming from. And that's usually how I open it. Like I said, I'll kind of change it up here and there, but really just trying to relate. Most people, they want to find the common ground with you. They when they're sitting there listening to you, they want to relate to you. And so just kind of bringing myself down to kind of not bringing myself down to their level like I'm high or anything, but just really trying to relate off the bat.
No, that's so powerful how you can do that. Just relate to the common person that's listening to you. Now, how important is passion? I mean, do you believe it's the vehicle for like keeping you going?
Oh yeah. There's a huge distinction in between or to things that I'm passionate about and things that I'm not. Comedy, I'm a pretty ambitious person. So like comedy is what I think about 24/7. I'm not as passionate about music anymore just because I was pretty tied into the music industry and kind of burned me out. So I don't chase music like I do comedy just because that passion is there. And like I said, it's what I've wanted to do before I ever learned an instrument. And, yeah, I think it's highly important. Like if you're, what do they say? If you're passionate about the work you do, you'll never work a day in your life, And I believe that. Like every time I get on stage, I'm nervous as hell. But the second I walk off stage, I'm like, I want to go do this 12 more times tonight, you know?
Yeah, a lot of
So
people say passion is everything.
yeah, I believe that 100%. It really is. It's what drives people to do great things, you know? I feel like without passion, we wouldn't have the iPhone or light bulbs or, you know, POV porn. So,
Yeah, you always got to keep on chasing after your dreams because your dreams will not chase you. Now, what is something significant from your childhood that shaped you into who you are today?
oh man, um, I'm a huge nerd. Like I grew up, uh, reading comic books, collecting action figures, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and, I was not quiet about it. Like in school, I was very much like, I'm not an athlete. I was in band and all that stuff. And so I was definitely a target. And so, like I said, just really training myself to be quick witted. You know, if anybody picked on me, I was a hard person to pick on. Like, either the second somebody picked on me, I threw it back at them, or I picked on myself before they had a chance. And nobody wants to beat somebody up that just beat themselves down, you know? And, but yeah, that was definitely kind of what ushered me to comedy was just, growing up kind of rough, you know, I wasn't popular. I wasn't, you know, I'm 5'7", you know, I'm a 5'7" white guy. I'm not bringing too much to the table. And, like I definitely think funny is what helps me connect with people, you know, because it gives me the opportunity to kind of have people look past who I am and kind of relate with that. If that makes any sense, I might just be jumbling along. I'm not sure.
No, that makes perfect sense. Now, what is your favorite Marvels or Star Wars character and why?
So Spider-Man and Captain America are my favorite. I I joke about this, but I'm a 50% or I'm actually 50% true story that I joined the Marine Corps. The Marines on the off chance that like the Captain America Super Soldier program would really come to fruition in my time while I was there. And I was like, if they're going to pick some scrawny white guy to be Captain America, like I'm at the top of the list, you know? But, Spider-Man for sure. Like I said, I was dorky, nerdy kid growing up. And, Star Wars, I'd have to say Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, kind of that prequel Star Wars. That was my Star Wars growing up, you know, with Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, all of that. So
Cool stuff. I mean, now how did the Marine Corps shape you into who you are today?
you know, I will say I always think that the Marine Corps really only let me in as kind of just like a mascot because I would go and do these things with the Marines and a lot of people don't. Anytime I tell somebody I was in the Marines, anybody that kind of has gotten to know me a little bit, it catches them off guard because I don't have the, I don't want to say I don't carry myself as a Marine because in a lot of ways I do. Uh, but I was really just kind of like the comic relief, you know, in the Marines. I was kind of just around to make people laugh and, to kind of joke around when we were kind of, you know, sitting in a field somewhere or, you know, sitting in the Mojave Desert doing pre-deployment training, just kind of doing all that. So kind of really just a comic relief, but I will say it definitely toughened me up, you know.
Now, what's a moment in your career that you'll never forget?
Oh man. In comedy, music, or just kind of either or?
Comedy.
In comedy, I'll say, it wasn't that long ago. I did a show and, did another show in Fort Worth and I had somebody come up to me and there was like, you know, comics a little bit bigger than me that have been doing this for quite some time. And, I had several people come up to me and they were like, man, you were the funniest person here. Like you were who we stayed for. It just really, really kind of reiterated why I do what I do and why I do this and why I drive, 5 hours to go do a show here for, $50, or why I go here. And it really just reminded me that, I have something to offer people.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question again because we lost audio there for a second. Now, how did your time in the Marine Corps shape you into who you are today?
Yeah, I was saying it definitely gave me a good work ethic. It definitely strengthened like me being self-sufficient. When I went into the Marines, I didn't really know how to do anything for myself. My dad, like I said, he's a pastor. He doesn't really know how to do anything other than preach and make jokes. So it really helped me learn to be self-sufficient, learn to do things for myself. And, it definitely twisted my sense of humor a lot, kind of towards the darker side, which, I know the military kind of tends to do that. So yeah, I would say it definitely just helped me learn to take care of myself and be my own man. And if I don't know how to do something, to figure it out instead of just, ask for help or ask somebody to do it for me. I would say that's definitely the biggest thing I got out of it. And the camaraderie, of course. I met a lot of people that, I'm still friends with today that, follow my comedy career. And so, and the dress blues. I love the dress blues.
No, thank you for your service. I know it's life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work. There's definitely, they say you remember the bad times more than you do the good times. And that's definitely true. I remember, a lot of times just sitting somewhere, just everybody in a bad mood. And I would get up and, do impressions of, officers, or, just tell jokes or do stupid stuff to kind of bring up the morale. So that was always kind of my role, was, to be the goofball to kind of keep the morale and keep people, motivated. So.
Bouncing off of that, now, what is one of the funniest things that you've ever happened to you on stage or just in real life?
Oh God. When I was in high school, I was in theater and stuff in high school, and I did the Wizard of Oz play, and I was a Tin Man, and they had a big, huge spread on the front on our like hometown paper. And it was a picture of all of us in our costumes, and the Tin Man suit that they ordered was a little small. It's definitely snug in places. So like on the front page of our newspaper, I am just like camel-toed out in front of our entire town. And it would be great if I, had something to be more flattered about. But it definitely didn't help me in any way. It was a lot more just like, hey, did everybody see Michael's small dick on the newspaper? So that was super embarrassing. I definitely had to kind of lean into that, but, that was definitely an embarrassing moment. I've had a lot of situations that I've kind of ended up in, just kind of like, I don't know how I got here. I forgot the words to my own song on stage in front of like 2,000 people and made them up on the spot, kind of quick thinking. I made up several words on the spot, and I did not realize until after the show that I'd given the lyrics to the guy running the sound and everything. And so I'm making up lyrics on the spot, and a giant screen got the lyrics right behind me. So just a huge screen behind me is blasting these lyrics that I wrote, and I forgot them, and I'm just making them up on the spot. And so everybody's just kind of like, I don't think he's singing the right song. So that was pretty embarrassing.
That's pretty embarrassing. That is pretty funny as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, what is something you've learned about yourself through your line of work, being a comedian?
Um, Man, I've learned. I'd say I've really learned to trust my instincts, and to not be afraid to get in front of people and talk about myself because, you know, before I really, got into comedy and did everything, I was always outgoing. Um, but I definitely kept everybody at arm's length. And, I was kind of an extrovert in front of people, but inside I was an introvert. And so I definitely learned to just put myself out there, not be afraid to just kind of tell my story, talk about myself and try to relate with people and just be a lot more outgoing. And then I
I feel
can,
like comedy reveals a lot about a person.
it does, it does, for you or worse, it definitely
Same with
does.
music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Music is really, I, my wife will say that I'm the worst communicator that there probably is, which is sad because my job in the Marine Corps was communication. So I must be somewhat good at it, but I've always been able to kind of express myself more through comedy and through music and through like different avenues versus just I'm not the kind of person that really can just say things or express myself. Uh, Not that I can't, but I always do it best through comedy or music or something like that. Do I guess where I'm making myself more vulnerable that way.
Now, what advice would you give someone who wants to be a comedian or a musician?
A musician, pick up the instrument you want and do it every day. Honestly, there's so many amazing things that are, I mean, you can go and learn any instrument now, especially with all the resources that are at our fingertips through YouTube and Masterclass and all this amazing stuff. When I started, I just kind of sat in a room and somebody taught me four chords and I just kind of watched people from there. And same with drums and piano. I really just kind of taught myself. But as far as music goes, just do it every day, and sit down and take the time to practice and use the resources that are in front of you. Uh, as far as comedy, just write everything down. Anything you think is funny, write it down. Even if you don't think it's funny in the moment, come back to it later. Um, Read books, watch the best comedians, watch what they do. Don't try to mimic anybody because people can call bullshit on you real quick when you're not being authentic or genuine. Um, just go up there and be yourself, be an exposed nerve. Don't be afraid to go up there and be like, I shit my pants in fifth grade on a field trip to the zoo. Just be vulnerable. Um, but definitely watch the greats, watch videos. I've done a lot of research, before I really got into this and try to just learn as much as I can. Best advice I would say is just never quit learning, you know?
I'm gonna bounce off of that one. I mean, what is one big lesson you've learned in comedy and entertainment?
Um, one big lesson I've learned, networking, man, networking. Don't be afraid to go out there and introduce yourself to people. Networking is huge and it's in every aspect of the entertainment industry, not saying use people by any means, uh, but don't ever think you're above talking to somebody or meeting somebody or helping somebody and, getting help from somebody. Just really, networking has been really big for me, just going and introducing myself to people and going, I'm a comedian. If you got any, I'd love to work with you at some point or, uh, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And that's what I've learned the most probably is just, being vulnerable and putting myself out there.
Yeah, every experience teaches us something valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I mean, how do you balance your family life with your career?
Oh man, not well. Not well. Uh, no, I do. I'm very much, very much a family guy. I I'm with my kids every day. The times that I'm not with them, like I'm mostly gone a lot on the weekends because, I do work a full-time job during the week. And then, I might have one or, some open mics during the week, but most of the time on the weekends, I'm gone doing shows. So just being 100% present when I'm there with them, not sitting around on my phone or doing stuff. And, I'm not above getting in the floor and playing Barbie dolls or, uh, dressing up like a princess. And my daughter paints my nails all the time. So, and then my son's 12 and, we'll play video games. We play PS5 or Nintendo Switch. And I would say that's honestly the best way I do it is just when I am there, just being as present as possible, and with my wife too. But, she can only handle so much of me. So I think, the going and coming back is very helpful. I definitely am a handful of a personality, and, I'll be home for a little bit and she'll go, "Don't you have a show?" Or maybe you need to go back to work for a little bit, give me a break. So.
No, that's really impactful. I mean, is there a daily habit that helps you stay creative and successful in your being a comedian?
Yeah, I observe everything. Like I'm in the job that I do, I'm by myself all day in a truck. And so I'm constantly listening and watching, almost kind of like an Easter egg hunt for funny things. As soon as something funny happens, I stop what I'm doing, I write it down, and then I go back to work. I got held up by Homeland Security. I'm in sales on like the construction side of things, and I went to a project and did not realize it was like a water treatment project that Homeland Security was at, and just flew right through the guard shack and every protocol that they had. And then just as soon as I got parked, I had people coming over here and searching my truck. And, I was like, I'm supposed to be here. But just little moments like that, I definitely wrote that down as soon as it happened. But yeah, really just listening and observing everything that's going on around me and things that happen in my life. And just kind of being present in the moment so that I can, find the funny things and, even things that aren't funny at the moment and try to make them funny.
No, yeah, being in the moment and building on habits.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what is something new that you've learned recently in your line of work, being a comedian?
Something new. Something new. I've really learned more. I've really learned crowd work in the last, probably, I would say, year. I've really learned because before I would be so nervous, that I would get up and, I would just do my set and get down, and it would be funny and stuff. But, just really, like I said before, opening myself up to the crowd and not being afraid to talk. And because I'm most comedians' biggest fear is that they're going to get up on stage and somebody's going to heckle the shit out of them, And, but if that happens and you're not used to talking to the audience, you're going to freeze, you're not going to know what to do. But really opening yourself up, not being afraid to get to know the audience and talk to them and make fun of them while in a loving way, making fun of yourself. When I did that hole in my pants joke, there was a guy on the front row that immediately just looked right down at my crotch. And a year ago, I probably would have just flew by it. But the second he did it, I addressed it. And I was like, "You freaking eyeballing me, guy?" So just not being afraid to really get to know the crowd and talk to them, and crowd work is definitely the biggest thing I've learned recently.
Now, how important is that in your line to work, being a comedian, to talk to the crowd?
Oh, I mean, honestly, if you don't, at that point, you're kind of just reading a script, you're kind of just getting down and reading things that you've written. And if you're not engaging with the crowd, it's the same every time. Eventually you're going to run out of material. And I mean, obviously you'll continue to write material. But if you just get up and do the same thing over and over again without, being, like I said, being present in the moment, not addressing things that happen at the show, somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom, or, somebody says something, somebody spills a drink, just being in the moment to be able to catch those things and address them and make them funny and make it personal for that night, because there's things that are going to happen that night that the crowd will go, yeah, I spilled a drink in my lap and the comedian said I pissed myself, just things that make that night special for them and significant, versus just getting up and reading a script.
No, being in the moment, that's such a good takeaway. Now, if you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self about being a comedian, what would you tell yourself?
Man, I would tell myself to start earlier and not be afraid. I would say, just start in your 20s. Start at about 21 and go be a comedian, and not start in your early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. Because, man, I'm 4 years away from 40 now, and it wears on you, especially driving around a lot, and really, for the most part, still building a name for myself and building a career out of it. That would be the best advice, is that, and just be open. Don't be afraid to share who you are with people. It's probably the best advice I could give myself. And buy hot Tula stock when it comes,
This is not financial advice at all, but yes.
Yeah, get into Bitcoin, maybe buy Apple stock in the 80s when I was a baby, things like that. So I'm a huge Back to the Future fan too.
Are you? That's really cool.
Oh yeah, I love Back to the Future.
Now, what's a fun fact most people don't know about you?
I dress up and go to Comic-Con a lot. Like every year, I went as the Green Power Ranger one year to go meet the actor who played the Green Power Ranger, and was just fully decked out in like a screen accurate costume. And it was so cool. It was like, because growing up, Power Rangers was my shit. Like I was kicking and punching trees, dogs. I didn't hurt dogs, but you know what I mean. Like I was fighting everything around me as a Power Ranger. And so to grow up as an adult and have the chance to like meet that guy, especially before he passed, that was such a cool moment for me. But yeah, I go to Comic-Con all the time, man. I love it. I love going to seeing the costumes and the actors and just all the nerd shit. I love it.
Yeah, what's your favorite characters?
Captain America, as far as like just all over, I'd say Spider-Man, Captain America, Batman, Superman, Flash. I've got a lot. I keep up with all of it. Like I watch a lot of like YouTube videos of like Marvel news and stuff. Like there's this channel called New Rock Stars, and that's the whole thing, is they just sit down and talk Marvel news, and I watch it every day. Like I sit there and watch people talk about nerd shit, and I love it. And yeah, that's probably the nerdiest thing I've ever said out loud.
So, no, nerd culture runs deep.
Oh, it does. I love it. I love it. I actually, when I was a kid, when I was like way too old, my grandfather was in the hospital. I was probably like 14, like to the point where like I should have been focused on girls, and trying to get a girlfriend. My grandfather was in the hospital in Dallas, and I legit wore a Spider-Man costume underneath my clothes. And my sister just saw the collar poking out. And I mean, they knew I had the costume, but I don't know what I was thinking, man. I was a real adventurous kid, And And so we were riding in the elevator, and my sister's like, "Are you wearing your Spider-Man costume under your clothes?" I was like, "No." And I mean, they just made fun of me they still make fun of me to this day because I was in the hospital just full Spider-Man suit under my clothes. Just, I had the mask in my back pocket. I didn't know what I was going to do or what was going to happen, but, I was ready. I had no powers or anything, but if you needed somebody in a Spider-Man suit, I was ready.
No,
So,
creative minds always have the best ideas.
yeah, I made that costume too, by the way. I sewed it myself and everything. Yeah. I took a permanent marker and drew the spider webs on it. So I was pretty proud of it.
That's so powerful. I mean, that's really remarkable how you could do something like that. Now, if you could like write your own superhero movie, what would it be about?
Uh, I don't know. Funny story. I actually wrote like a young adult sci-fi action adventure book. With a friend, I co-wrote it with a friend of mine named Chance Bradford back in 2019, 2020. And, we had like a whole thing planned, and, we made it, and then, we maybe sold a few hundred copies, and then, life kind of went different ways. And, but it was about a kid being in an orphanage, and his parents are like scientists and stuff. It's so much deeper than how I'm explaining it. It sounds very lame the way I'm saying it, but the book itself is actually really good. But his parents are scientists. His mom kind of works for this evil organization, and his dad dies, but they make this like nanotech type suit, and the dad downloads his brain pattern and functions into this, AI computer. So the kid gets the suit, and his dad is like his dead dad is the AI in the suit, and you don't find out to the end, but like the mom is actually, so it's like just like a big family, thing. I probably wrote it when I was a kid when listening to my parents fight, just like, what if I had superpowers while this was going on? But I don't know. It's cool.
No, that's
But
so
that's the
cool how
only
you
like
were writing
idea I've had.
a
Yeah.
superhero book. That's so cool. Maybe one day it'll turn into a movie if you
You
put
never
your
know,
mind to
man.
it enough, you
Yeah.
know?
You never know. Yeah. If I eventually suck so bad at comedy, I might go back to the book. So
Now, are you more of a Star Trek man or are you Star Wars type of guy?
more of a Star Wars guy. Now I do enjoy Star Trek, but like I'm more into like the newer stuff, like Star Trek Discovery, Strange New Worlds. That I like those shows, but I mean Star Wars is my dad made me watch, the 1979 and Return of the Jedi and all that when I was a little kid. And I say made me. He was like, "You're gonna watch this and like it," you know. And so I definitely lean more to Star Wars.
Who's your favorite character in Star Wars?
Uh, I would say like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon. That's definitely my Star Wars. That's the one I grew up with. And I went as Obi-Wan for Halloween when I was in like sixth, seventh grade, and had like a little rat tail and everything. Like I had a haircut. I got a flat top just to get that haircut.
That's pretty powerful. I mean, to walk the streets like that just to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got picked
Now,
on a
what
lot in school. I don't know if I said that. Rightfully so. If I would have been a popular kid, I would have probably beat the shit out of me too. So
Now we talked a lot about Power Rangers, Star Wars, and a whole bunch of other TV shows and movies. Now, which one of those made the biggest impact on your life?
oh man, Marvel. I would say Marvel's definitely had just the biggest impact on my entire life. I was introduced to it at a very young age through, the 90s cartoons, and I've always stayed very engaged with Marvel. And then as soon as, like the MCU, Iron Man, and all these big movies came out, I was like, finally, the masses will get to kind of see what I see and how great these stories are, because at that point, it was all there were Tobey Maguire movies and, different, it wasn't a shared universe, And so the only shared universe you had was either through the cartoons or, the comic books. So I was really happy that, Marvel is the just insane mega company it is now,
No, so true. It's absolutely massive. And can you talk about the Captain America and the Marine Corps again?
Oh man. So when I first enlisted to the Marines, I was 18. I joined right out of high school. I was 18 years old. And just because of how just weird and messed up my brain is, like I always like very much in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to join the Marines on the off chance if they like need a scrawny little guy that they want to turn into a super soldier, I'm going to be their first pick. The 145 pounds, 5'7" guy, they're going to pick me 100%. So definitely played a part on it. That Captain America definitely played a role on me joining the Marines for sure. That never happened. I lost more weight and got even scrawnier in the Marines, and they were like, here's a gun. So
That's
like, do I not get a
powerful. That's
shield
really
or
powerful.
I had to go get
Or a
my own shield?
costume or
Yeah, a
any
costume
type
or,
of,
yeah.
you should have
Expect me
made your
just to run
own,
out
really.
there and, yeah, I know. I should have sewed my own. It was like, I got to run out there in camouflage. This is ridiculous. Nobody's even going to see me. So,
Now, what do you think makes a great comedian?
oh, what makes a great comedian? I think well, I would say you watch the funniest comedians you can think of, and I would say the thing they all have in common would be, their the way they think. Just being an outside of the box thinker. Not being afraid to go places that some don't. And I would say what makes a great comedian is working on the craft as much as you can, and not ever feeling like you've reached that level, always being able to reaching your goal and going, okay, where do I got to go next? And just never, look at all the people, some of the funniest people. I mean, look how hard they work, and they're always writing, and they're always touring, and they're always, they're the hardest working people in that industry. And I guess that's what I would definitely say is just people that it's the work ethic behind it. You can be the funniest person in a room, and everybody can tell you you're hilarious, but if you don't know how to market yourself and you don't know how to push yourself and get yourself to the next level, I definitely think just hard work is probably the most important thing. Obviously, being somewhat funny helps. You can't just go up there and have a marketing degree and not be hilarious, But just the hard work and just the perseverance and pushing yourself is, I would say, the most important thing. But I could be 100% wrong.
Comedy is art. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Comedy is art, and it's a real secret to
Yeah.
to make people laugh.
Yeah, it's formulaic. If you sit down and listen to comedians and really listen to their set, you'll notice the patterns and the formulas, and the setups and the punchline. You'll really notice how everything's constructed and comes together, And that's definitely what I've learned.
Okay. Now, what is one of the best jokes or bits you ever written? When I had Eric Biggs on, he had one about his honeymoon. Do you have anything like that?
Oh man. I would say, oh man, one of the best jokes that I've ever written. I make a joke about I joke a lot about my wife and our relationship. Because my wife is 5'10". She's taller than me. I make a lot of jokes about like my wife being the man in our relationship and like the man of the house. And I always joke about how she never married me for any like emotional reasons, like the only reason she married me was for like emotional reasons. There's no like sexual reasons she married me, And the joke is, I've seen what she searches in porn. There's nothing in her search category that says 5'7" white guy bangs chick for a minute and a half. So I definitely am partial to that joke.
No, that's funny. That's really funny. Now, how do you handle like tough crowds when jokes don't land?
Oh man. So it kind of goes one or two ways. You either just go, that didn't land, and you move on, or you just, you lean into it and you address it in a funny way and then move on. You definitely don't, it's hard to go into your next joke on an awkward moment. So I find for me personally, and not every comedian will, tell you the same thing, but I find for me personally, when a joke hits and falls flat, you find a way to address it in a funny way and then just go into your next set. I did a joke about, I don't know, I made a joke about, just recently, I made a joke about being in karate when I started karate when I was 15 and how other kids quit karate when they were 15 to start getting hand jobs. And I was like, I started karate at 15 in some guy's basement surrounded by 10-year-old black belts. And the joke was, we all still did get hand jobs, The setup is like the punchline is like, obviously hand jobs from the instructor. And it just fell flat. And I could have just moved on, but I was like, you guys aren't a real big pedophile crowd here, are you? And they laughed at that. And it kind of gave me the go ahead to go into the next joke instead of just leaving it on a bad note. Because not every joke is going to land the same for everybody. You might, you'll have jokes that completely fall flat, but you could also use that as a springboard into setting up something bigger into your next joke, So never,
Yeah, you really got to read
I
the
always try
crowd.
to look, exactly. And look for opportunities. Even if something falls flat, find the opportunity to address it, make it funny, make the awkwardness of them not laughing funny, and then move into your next setup,
Yeah, not every show goes perfectly. And, it's all about how you bounce back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would be lying if I said I've never had a show where people just sat there and stared at me like, what the hell is this guy? Why is this guy talking about his dick for 10 minutes? Let's get out of here, This is an Applebee's, man. What are you doing? So, you never know.
No, I'm going to bounce off of that. What's one of the weirdest gigs you ever done?
Oh, man. I had a great gig recently. What was weird about it was that it was in the back of a bagel shop. And it's like you walk in and the food was amazing and the bagels are great. But you walk in and you're just like surrounded by all these like baked goods and bagels. And then behind it is just like a comedy club just sitting there, and it's part of the bagel shop. Like you have to walk by about 20 bagels to get to your seat for comedy. And, man, I will say they had the best blueberry scones I've ever eaten in my entire life. It was fantastic. But it was definitely weird. When I walked in, I was like, I don't know if I'm in the right spot, but I'm here to tell jokes, But man, yeah, those scones are amazing. It's definitely weird. It's definitely weird to walk into a bagel shop and be like, I'm gonna go to the back room and talk about, jerking off when I was a teenager for 20 minutes, if you guys don't mind. You guys just enjoy the bagels and baked goods. It's definitely weird.
Comedy can take you to some strange places.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's funny because I'll get messages and stuff on like Instagram and TikTok and stuff. And every once in a while, you'll get a message and they're like, hey, we want you to come out here and do a comedy show. And, or come do our corporate event. And I'm like, this is either a scam or I'm going to get like stabbed 100%. Like you get a lot of messages and it's real weird. You get asked to do some weird stuff. I got asked to do a birthday party like 10 hours away. I was like, I'm in East Texas. Like I'm not going to El Paso for, for your cousin's birthday. Like, your cousin has no idea who I am, you know, but you do get some weird messages like that. It's strange, you know? So I've never had to like send farts in a jar or anything crazy like that yet, but I'm looking forward to that moment, you know, when I can really put a price on them, know what they're worth. So,
Now, what is one piece of advice you could share today that would make the listeners 1% better moving forward?
one piece of advice, like I said, just honestly, man, it's something that and I use this in every aspect of my life, in music and my job and comedy, just as a parent, as a husband. Just never quit learning. Never feel like you've reached the point where you know everything, because I know ego and arrogance is a hard thing to overcome, especially when you're good at something. When you're good at something, it's hard to realize that you can be better than you are, and a lot of people stifle their creativity because they're like, I've reached that point, I'm never going to get any better. Just always be pushing to the next step, always be listening and watching and learning. And, don't ever think you've arrived, don't ever think you've reached the point where you can't learn anything else, because you can. And I definitely wish, if that's the best advice I could give my younger self, because I was an arrogant, especially when I went into the Marines, I was an arrogant prick and thought I knew everything, and, there's no telling where I'd be if I had that advice when I was, 21. I might, I'd be on a bigger stage, dead in an alley. Who knows? I don't know.
You definitely
But
gave something for the listeners to think about.
Yeah, that's definitely the best advice I feel like that I could give.
Now, how do you define success in comedy?
Not financially. I would definitely find success in laughs, honestly, man. Really, if you find success because you do it so much and you're constantly writing and you're constantly pouring so much into it, and when you go and do a show and you spend so much time putting everything together and really just building something that you think is great, and then you go into a room full of strangers that don't know you and they think it's great, that's successful to me, whether it's in front of 2,000 people or 10 people that are laughing their ass off in a room with you, I definitely think that's how me personally, I define success in comedy.
Yeah, for some it's fame, and then for others it's just fulfillment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I would say I definitely, fame isn't bad. I've always been worried about ever reaching any kind of level of fame, just because I shoot off at the mouth so much. I feel like I would get just immediately canceled. I'm surprised I hadn't said anything on here I might have. I don't know. But that's always my biggest fear. I'm like, I know I'm going to go, if I ever like get to any type of level of fame, I know the second I get on any kind of show or talk show or anything, they're going to be like, pull the plug, get this guy the hell off of here. But yeah, success for me is, and it'll change, success for me right now is that, but in 5 years, I might define success differently once I'm in a different level. But I would say me right now in this moment, success is walking into a room with the hard work that I prepared and other people seeing the value in that, and laughing at it and just having that shared experience.
It's a great takeaway, Michael. Now, what's next for you in your journey as a comedian?
Well, I'm at home this week. I don't have any shows this week. I'm at home. Next week, I am a top 10 finalist on a comedy competition in Shreveport, Louisiana. So next Saturday, I will be there performing there. And then just really just bouncing around between Austin, DFW, and East Texas and different things like that. Just like I said, Dallas Comedy Club. I've got some stuff coming up in Fort Worth. Like I said, you can definitely find. I'm pretty good about posting what's coming up next on like social media and stuff. So, honestly, I can't even remember where all I'm going, but I've got a lot of stuff coming up that I've been pretty excited to announce that I haven't been able to announce yet. But I definitely have some good stuff in the works.
Now, where can people follow and support your work?
I'm on YouTube under Michael Morgan Comedy, and it's the same on Instagram and TikTok. Just if you search Michael Morgan Comedy on any of them, surprisingly, I'm the only Michael Morgan Comedy that I've found, which is just two of the widest names you could get. I always say my name sounds like a white couple that are about to send their food back at a restaurant. Michael Morgan, and that's what it sounds like to me anytime I hear my name. It's just like a white couple, just like, at a restaurant, like, we didn't order this, and sending their food back. So,
And all that will be in the description down below for the listeners. Now, is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
man, I would just like to say it was great I'm glad we had a little bit of technical difficulties at first, but so glad we were able to do this and meet you guys. And, just had a blast, man. Love talking to new people and digging into some childhood trauma about thinking I was Spider-Man, I'm going to have to go dig that suit up and find it, wear it. So it might
Please
fit a little
post it,
differently.
tag us.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? You know what I will post for you? I've got a picture of me in a Deadpool suit, but the ass is completely ripped. And so there's just a picture of me walking around in a Deadpool suit with just bare ass hanging out. So I'll find that and post that. That's a good picture.
Michael, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute blast having you on the show.
Yeah, fantastic, man. Hope to be back.
No, yeah, we really appreciate you sharing your journey, and it brings some laughs along the way,
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Yeah, I'd love to come back anytime. Just let me know.
Now, for the listeners, make sure you follow Michael and support his work. Again, tune in for Every Day is Friday, Podcast 365. Until next time, everybody, thank you.